We're live.
Is it 1 o'clock?
It is. Yep. Here we go.
Straight up 1 o'clock?
Yep. Hello, Robben from Yorkshire.
Aw, that's great. Yes.
You see?
Yeah. We're doing things a little bit differently. Hi, everybody. We had some technical difficulties setting up, and we're on my computer instead of Kelly's computer, which is a nicer computer, bigger screen, but somehow we couldn't get on with your computer. So it's going to look a little bit different, but also there's a little more distance between me and the camera so that you can see the instruments that we're going to be talking about today. And I must apologize. I don't have an amplifier. I had taken both my my house amps in for repair right before the big time sequester hit. And now, no one's supposed to go out, and I haven't been able to get my amps. Talk about some of my instruments, which are all near and dear to me. I'm not a collector. I don't have a lot of guitars. And so consequently, I only have some really good ones. And everything else I've definitely let go of to turn it into something like this, selling, trading, things like that. That's the only way I can do it, to have the great instruments. And it's been a process of years. Took me years to get the collection that I have now today, which is about 8 really good guitars. So it took a long time. So maybe we could see what people are asking here for a minute. So we're going to be moving around. Kelly's working extra hard today. So she is. There she is. So let's go back kind of to the beginning, those first people who popped on with us here. Can we do that? Wow, a lot of people coming on board. Thank you. So there's Till, Guitar Schneider. I think we've met before, Till. Edward Johns, hello from Yorkshire, England. Beautiful. Modal Norway. Molde, excuse me. Belgium, awesome. You guys are up late. It's not really late, is it? Jim Heisler from Katy, Texas. Laura has it that David Grissom's first PRS Gold Top was built for you. If true, can you tell us about it? And actually, I don't know that to be true. So I don't know what to say. I'll have to ask David. I'll ask him. I'll shoot him a text. We can mention it again next week or something. Now I'm curious. Love from Murfreesboro. Hello, neighbor. Hello from France. Bonsoir. Hey, greetings from New York. Wow, new telly. Yeah, we'll talk about that. It's not exactly new, but I've had it for a while. Madrid, hello. Bombay, yikes. Hey, Robben, did you ever have the habit to play your solid body guitars unplugged at home? Pros and cons of that. Thanks for making me connected to my favorite artists every Sunday. Sweet, thank you. I wonder if there's any way we can do this so you don't have to hold it, babe.
No, it's okay.
Why don't we set it here for just a moment? And I'll answer that question.
Is that better?
That's better. Yeah. So I always sit and play the electric guitar unplugged. I mean, I've done it for years and years and years. Oddly enough, I've never been a stickler for the need of an amplifier to sit and play and enjoy it, an electric guitar. But honestly, it's much better. I'm just a slow learner or lazy or whatever. But if you play the electric guitar, it's much better to play it plugged into an amplifier because it's responding, a certain way, and it's, I say, amplified. Not as a joke, but you plug it into an amplifier, and right. So now everything is much more there and present, and it can make you make adjustments to how you play the guitar. How you much pressure you apply and things like that. So if you're an electric guitarist, I would highly recommend playing through an amplifier as much as you can, you know. So there we go. I think that's good for now. You missed my question last time. I would like to know if you are interesting by movie and if it could be a source of inspiration. Thanks from France. Inspired by movies. I would have to say no. Film for me, although obviously a brilliant art form, I honestly, I like it for entertainment generally. You know, I like to laugh. I like things that are funny. So it takes my mind off of music, you know, much more the idea. But but in any case, I feel that I have an empathy toward that, like taking something that I could be inspired by and writing for it. But I've never been inspired by film to play. Which one? Do you still have some Fender Esprit Ultra guitars? No, I do not. I stopped playing them a long time ago. And I gave a couple away. I sold one to someone in Japan, the very first one, you know, the one that Talk to Your Daughter album. Because I just, I didn't want the ebony fretboard anymore. And it was a very bright guitar. And it sounded best really loud, because you could get the amplifier to kind of fill in all that missing, those missing tones from the brightness of that instrument. Spruce top, you know, ebony fretboard, super bright. But if I was loud, I could bring in all those other frequencies through the amplifier, you know. So I don't have them anymore, and it's interesting, the ebony fretboard thing. It's a big deal. And I have a 355 that some of you may have saw. I think it was sitting back here last time we were on. I love that guitar. But that ebony fretboard, that bright thing, I moved away from it. And I started, you know, wanting just darker, you know, tones. What do you think? How do you go from scale?
Sorry.
Oh, my mail quit unexpectedly. My battery is
No, you're plugged in.
is shot, but we're plugged in. Yeah, so hopefully we'll be all right. Yeah, how do you go from scale patterns to playing phrases in a jazz context, especially? Scale patterns. Yeah. I don't play them too much. You know, I use those things for embellishment, for a flurry. You know. But it's not the main part of my playing. It's not the main focus of my playing. The main focus of my playing is some kind of a melody and a tone, a texture, you know, timing, the distance between the notes, you know, a phrase and when you play again. Those things are how I developed my style, was by actually avoiding getting too much into patterns, you know. I like triads. I use triads a lot. But scale patterns, I almost don't even know what that is, scale patterns, you know. I would think it would be something that repeated, maybe 3 or 4 notes that repeat, but you move up, you know, a tone or something like that. So I almost don't even know how to talk about that. But again, I have used all the tools that are available in jazz. I've used them to play blues. You know, my jazz playing is limited and generally modal in nature, so one key. And I know how to use tones that, you know, like if you have a vamp in E minor, let's say, or even E7, you know, major. I've broadened my ears enough, and I understand certain things about how music works that allow me to use all 12 tones. And so I'll more play with like a 12 tone kind of a situation. And again, trying to be melodic, find some patterns in there, but the patterns that I do use, I use them briefly. I use them usually on 5-chord, 5-1, on the 5-chord to go to, or a little bit on the root. The diminished scale, it's both an altered 5-chord, and for me, it might as well be, just a 7th chord major scale, 5-chord major scale. Okay. While comping to choose your voicings, do you think about creating little melodies with the voices on top, or in your head you can hear every voice of the chords while they're moving? Yeah, this is something I talk a lot about in my dojo channel, particularly in the beginner's course. I talk about that a lot. I think it's the beginner's course. I'm not quite sure. But in any case, they're both available. If you're a subscriber, you can look at both courses, intermediate and beginning. But yeah, it's the top note. It's the top note. And I think you can just hear this. I don't think you need to make an adjustment here. But yeah, like chord voicing. Yeah, any chord voicing. I'm not quite ready for this, but yeah, if you're comping, right? So there's a rhythm, it repeats, and there's a little melody. Now change it. Little adjustments like that. Definitely how I choose my chord voicings. It's being led by that top note.
Why don't you talk about this guitar a little bit?
Oh, okay.
You got it in hand?
This guitar I bought at True Tone Music in Santa Monica, California, when I was living back there. And this was right around the time, I think, that I was making records with a band called Renegade Creation. We did 2 albums together. Mike Landau was the other guitar player, not bad. Jimmy Haslip on bass and Gary Novak on drums. If you haven't heard those records, especially the second one's called Bullet. And basically, I sing my songs and take the solos. Mike Landau sings his songs and takes the solos. It's kind of split up that way. And there's a little crosstalk in this song or that song. But I got this guitar. This is a B25, a Gibson B25, 1965 B25. And I think I paid like $2,300 for it, which is money. And at the same time, it's not that much money for a vintage instrument. And I think it was just one of these guitars that just sat around. And the guy at True Tone, I'm spacing on his name right now. Good guy, though. He would just bring something to my attention once in a while and say, you might be interested in this thing here. Because he knew I wasn't going to be buying a $25,000 guitar. So I bought this at that store. And Renegade Creation, I had written this song called Nazareth. And if you'll recognize the tone, I hope, I don't know how it's translating there. I can hear it here, but that song, the day I arrived in Nazareth, PA, dirty and warm, it's like most of the way. The car left untended several borders ago. Strange to feel happy in a place you don't know. I always loved the sound just of those 2 chords. I was sitting on my couch. I don't think I had this guitar yet, or I would have been playing it. I was looking for a good acoustic. And I had these 4 Martins that I borrowed from that same store, True Tone. played all these Martins just one after the other, sitting on the couch trying to pick one. And I never fell in love with one of them, but I happened to look inside, and I wondered where those guitars were made, and it said Nazareth, PA, in there, and I'm like, oh, that's a song, So I started writing Nazareth that evening.
You've been playing this around the house a lot lately.
I have indeed. If
On the back porch last night.
On the back porch last night, the back balcony. Yeah, I think. Pull out the window there. Yeah, the light's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
but it's a pretty high balcony out there.
We live like in a tree house.
We live in a tree house. The birds and the antelope play.
Yeah.
And I think what Kelly is kind of intimating at there is, with this coronavirus thing going on and everyone's stuck at home. And it's been interesting, not having an amplifier, because I really do, I've learned to plug into the amp at home now. And I keep one right here in the living room. Little guy. I think we took a picture on Instagram, a little VH1, something like that. And no amp. And so I need to hear myself a little better. So I went ahead and pulled out the B25. And I also have this the J45 that I purchased from Norm's Rare Guitars a long time ago. I mean, I say a long time ago, but I think the first appearance of this guitar in a recording was on my last record, Purple House. 1959 J45. I paid like $5,100 for this, I think. He had it at 55, I think, and he gave me a decent break on it. And I played so many acoustics and finally boiled it down to this one, simply because it sounds fantastic, It's got a big old honking, like one of those big old honking Gibson necks, It's pretty thick, pretty clean, On the top, it's been pretty beat up. That was already there. It also has a crack in it that, like when the weather changes, it heals up, and then it'll kind of open up again and it'll rattle. Right now, it's in pretty good shape. Again, I have no idea. I've also got this tuned down a half step. So if you know the Purple House record at all, there's a song on there called Willing to Wait, and you might recognize the tone here. Again, we were tuned down a half step for that song, and it's because it was too high for me. I wrote it in G, so if you know this song and you're interested, that's a B minor 9 with an open E, right? Like it's an A triad, open D, B there. So one would call that a B minor 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Right? That's the 9th. B minor 9, add 11. 11 on top. Willing to wait outside your window, putting my time under your sky. Just a child of the weather. Just a child of the moon, living on schemes, living on dreams, that I will put aside. I forgot that part. As you can see, this is unrehearsed. That's it. I'll set you free. Sorry. And I feel the wind blow in perfect time. We will collide. Guitar solo. It's by a young man named Drew Smithers. I'm playing it wrong. I am. I'm not sure, but okay. As the moon drips across the sky, oh, as the moon drips across the sky, keeping a gentle line, sending peaceful dreams. Super smile, in its super flight, beaming quiet in light, wishing you light. So you remember Not Afraid to Be a Fool. Practicing it in front of all of you today. Yeah, because I should have practiced that a little bit more beforehand. Yeah, it's B minor. I like that little thing. And those chords. So yeah, I like that ending. Right? Could be that, but I kind of like that ninth in there. As the moon drips across the sky, keeping a gentle light, sending peaceful dreams. Super smile, and it's super flight, beaming fire light, wishing you good night. I told this story recently. I think somewhere. I don't think it was here. Well, some of you may have heard it, where basically I was working on the song "Willing to Wait," and that night was a super moon. And I smoke a cigarette every now and then. I stepped out on my balcony, my back porch at the old house, and to have a smoke. And I looked up, and it was the super moon. So it was huge, and it was beautiful, and it's like, wow. So I just took that in, and I thought of, as the moon flies across the sky, I think started there, and then I switched it to as the moon trips across the sky, and kept going. And I thought, this is some corny stuff. Nobody's going to want to hear this. And then I remembered, the Beatles, Ringo Starr sang that "Good Night, Sleep Tight," right? It's a little lullaby. And I thought, this is great. Because the song is sort of about, waiting on someone to re-embrace them, let them back into their life, willing to wait outside your window, put in my time under your sky, And so then it was sort of like, so sweet dreams. I'm a corny guy. Okay, let's answer another question or two, babe. Which one? Has your setup on the telly changed since you first got it, and why? Strings, frets, action, etc. Can you grab that one, babe? So I'm sure the telly you're referring to isn't the one I had in my hand. Did I have that over in my hand? No. No, I hadn't.
In the very beginning.
Yeah. Okay. So this is this is the best friend I ever had as a musical instrument. And I remember never liking the Telecaster. I didn't like the look of it when I was a kid, you know. I happened to be, the night I got my first electric guitar, that day, my father and I had been visiting a friend of his way up in Northern California who had owned a music store there. And my dad had taught him his first few chords on the guitar. Now he had a music store in Antioch, California. And my dad and I took a trip, went up there to visit some old friends that he had there, including that gentleman. Went into a store, went into his store, which was closed. He opened it for us. We went in and looked around. I was just in awe of all of these electric guitars, except the Telecaster. I saw one of these. It was white, as I recall. And I just thought, I don't like the way that guitar looks now, you know, for whatever the reasons. And I think I've also told this story, maybe even here before. Sorry to repeat myself, but I just went into a music store in San Francisco to buy some guitar strings. This guitar was sitting there. This was like 92. And I walked over, picked it up, because Mike Bloomfield, you know, first Butterfield album, and fell in love with it and bought it. And so I've had it ever since, and literally it's been the best, the most trustworthy and versatile instrument that I've ever owned. Just love it. And, you know, not all tellies are the same. So I found a good one. And everyone agrees, you know, anybody who ever plays this guitar goes, wow, that's a Telecaster, you know. This treble pickup is crazy great. And you can see, I actually put almost all of this wear and tear on this guitar. This guitar used to be clean. Now it's, you know, definitely been through it. A lot of years on the road, man. So as far as the action goes, honestly, I've changed very little. I did at one time put 6,000s in this guitar. And I think it was during the period of time with when the Blue Line and I cut the Mystic Mile album. So I had 6,000s on here, and I had 11s and had it tuned down a half step, and that's how I worked that instrument at that time. And those of you who have been with us for a while, you know, the first song on the record is He Don't Play Nothing But the Blues, and it's in A flat, not A, right? I don't remember quite how to play it. I didn't tune this instrument, I'm sorry, and haven't played it in a while.
It's hard to hear, too.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's why that's down a half step. It's an A flat. Purple Haze is an E flat, y'all know. Anyway, that's the only time I really did something that I wished I hadn't done, but it's a long time ago. And this guitar has served me incredibly well up to this point. It has been refretted a few times, and, you know, the fretboard has thinned out, you know, from, yeah, you probably can't tell much on this here. But anyway, that used to be a lot thicker, a lot deeper. You know, the rosewood fretboard was deeper. But after, you know, fret jobs and, you know, all of that, it lost some depth. So the guitar, the neck literally feels smaller to me now than it used to. It could have been the big frets, but also a little lost there. And, you know, I made the neck is soft finish. You know, we took off that, you know, that finish that was on there. You can kind of see maybe it changes. See how it changes color a little bit right there. You see? So we did that. So you're going to lose some wood. Now, all this was done a long time ago, though, and to really answer your question, it hasn't. I haven't done anything to change this instrument. I did have a bad experience once. I won't say where because I don't want anybody to freak out. But someone I didn't know in a pinch, I was told this guy could adjust the neck of my guitar, because it was just the action was just a little flat or a little high. I don't even remember what the problem was. So I went, okay, great. Hi, man. Gave him the guitar. Turned around, was chatting with someone, then turned around to see what was going on with the guitar. And he had taken the neck off the body. And I just couldn't believe it because you don't have to do that. And if you do, it's going to be a while before your guitar settles down. So don't ever do that. Don't ever do that. Unless you really have a problem. Never take the neck off your Telecaster or a Stratocaster. Don't do it. Just go ahead and dig in there. And they make little wrenches now. Like mine's all funky, it's from just sticking a Phillips head in there, Well, again, it's going to be hard to see. I doubt it. No, a little bit. See how it's kind of dug out there. People are familiar with that. So the Telecaster, this Telecaster, I just been the best of friends to me. So someone noticed, I think I had this in my hands when we came to you. This is actually a 1952 body and neck. And there is nothing else about it that is original, right? None of this. This is all new, Fender hardware. These are probably, I don't know, they may be older, but they're brass. They're those brass ones. And my the other Telecaster has the ridged ones. I don't know the language. So anyway, it sounds so particularly good for certain things, and mainly rhythm. I tried taking it out to play on the road, but it is hard to play. It's stiff, and I don't know, how to, I took it in for a setup recently, but just was quickly because I was on my way to record with this instrument. So I'm hoping to make it more playable because, like the God dang, I am just the maple neck. The maple it's brighter, it's finished. I didn't take the finish off of this, so it's snappy. And this treble pickup is great. So man, for snappy, funky, twangy, it's really cool. And I got it, fairly cheaply. I mean, if you bought a 52 Telecaster today, that's some big time money. But this is a 52 body and neck, so I got it for certainly half of what it would be worth otherwise. Don't remember exactly what I paid. Really cool guitar, though. I used this on the for rhythm parts on the last Jing Chi record, Supremo. It's just this funky, snappy, kind of things as rhythm parts. That's another thing. People who are familiar with my work. Some are not familiar with the Jing Chi records, which those are really good records. And it's Vinnie Colaiuta on drums. I'm telling you that first Jing Chi album, which is I'm pretty sure it's just called Jing Chi. It's 13 years ago, more now. That record is, I think, if you want to hear Vinnie Colaiuta really deliver, that's the record, man. God bless him with staying in a lot of other people that he works with, Jeff Beck. But those are Jeff Beck records. And this is a Vinnie Colaiuta record as much as it is a Robben Ford or Jimmy Haslip record. So I'm really encouraging you to check out that first Jing Chi just for Vinnie. But there's a lot of great work on there. And I particularly also like the most of the second album. Third record's kind of different, but I love it too. Oh, while we're on the subject,
What do you want?
I'll grab it. It's right here. You know, we had talked about playing this time around, and again, I don't have an amp, or I would be doing that. I'm not an acoustic guitar player. Never have been very good at it. You know, the neck strings are bigger, you know. So I've used, you know, these two that I have for writing and recording. I don't think I've ever played that right there before. It's like a C chord, right? With the major seventh and the fifth on top and in the root. It's kind of a nice voicing. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the diminished scale, which seems to be something that people are particularly interested in, and particularly where I'm concerned. And I think it's because I definitely dove into the diminished scale as my source of getting other tones into my music, because primarily a blues player, and so I wanted to hear more notes, you know, and the jazz thing just really isn't where I was gonna go. You know, I kind of thought I wanted to, but honestly, the blues is much more home base for me. And so, you know, all the other things that came into my world, the way I developed outside of being primarily a blues guitar player who wanted to be a jazz guitar player, you know, what I started learning were concepts. And that's really, you know, making musical choices. And that began, thankfully, at a very early age for me. I was 22. It was Tom Scott and the LA Express backing up Joni Mitchell. So that's where I started learning musical concepts, you know, about, you know, if this instrument's high, then you play in the middle, or maybe somebody's not, you know, and that the musicality is where I invested my energy, was the musicality, because I wasn't going to be playing 1-6-2-5s and, you know, like even like the modern jazz players whom I love, you know, whoa, I mean, harmony has gone so far with someone like Michael Brecker, and there are guitarists who, you know, moved in that direction as well, you know, Kurt Rosenwinkel, someone like that, wow, you know, harmonically so developed, so sophisticated. Too lazy here, I think. And also, I like a little more joy in my music. Can you tip it back a little bit back, because it's cutting my head off there. Yeah, like I like grooves, and, you know, I like to have fun, and I like to interact. And I'm telling you something, you know, when people are playing a million notes at fast tempos, you know, it's all about playing all of those notes at fast tempos, you know. Otherwise, you can't do it. You have to really want to do that, you know. It doesn't mean you can't say something, express something, but generally I like my music a little slower and more melodic, you know. So I use the diminished scale to get more out of one chord. And the blues, you know, it's kind of primarily one chord, right? If you play a blues in E, you can play E pentatonic through the whole thing, you know, one scale, you know, to bind them all. And and also, you know, just the, you know, like if I play an E7, you know, the scale that runs through E7, right, which is A major, starting on the 5th degree, right? That's A. A major scale. So I have a major scale, I have the pentatonic scale, and I have the diminished scale. So these are my tools. These are the things that I work with. I think we want to put that in. I got it, babe. So, not, like an incredibly expanded vocabulary, like people like Kurt Rosenwinkel. And I mention him again because he's the one guitarist, modern guitarist over the past, some odd years that I have been the most impressed with. I just love the way he plays. I don't listen to it. I have listened to it, but I don't listen to things that I can't use, and I can't use it. I would have to go off into that. I'd have to start finding out what he was doing. And of course, there are many others like that. I think of Michael Brecker, and of course, John Coltrane, many, many people, who really went into it, studied, practiced again and again and again and again, very complex things. And I'm just not that guy. So I wanted to just show you one little thing on the diminished scale. Just, like one little thing. I'm not going to play a lot here, but just a way to look at it so that you can find things on your own, right? Like one of the things that I have never been very good at is interval playing, right? Like playing across the guitar, where you're skipping strings, right? So I thought I need to practice something like that, and so I kind of thought about it for a minute, and then I thought of the diminished scale because that's where I find my extra notes, my surprising notes. So how about I practice the diminished scale in a way that is also practicing intervallic playing, So I wrote a song. It's the same way that that song, Tea Time for Eric. I wasn't much at titles back in those days. But I wrote that song as an exercise to learn how to play certain voicings, jazz voicings. So I wrote this thing for Jing Chi. It's on the Supremo record. This is the vamp. So what I'm playing is a C-sharp triad with the fifth in the root, the third on the D string, and the C-sharp on the G string. All those notes are found in the G diminished scale. There are triads all over the G diminished scale. So that's G chord, tonic, fifth, and third up here. And it's in 6/4 time. 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now that's weird. And it's a pretty weird little tune, but it's cool. It turned out cool, I should say. Okay, so, basically, the first thing I do when I learn a scale is find the triads that are in it. So the just like if you were to do a harmonized G major scale, tonic, third, fifth, and then you just move everything just like it would go, just as it would move, right? Each tone just goes up where it would go within the context of the G major scale. So that's how you get a harmonized G major scale. Okay? So I thought, wow, how do you harmonize the diminished scale? And this is what sort of, it's not really true, but it sort of made me think of the diminished scale as a minor scale. Because in order to harmonize it this way, with this kind of a fingering, in order to get each note to move properly, it's better to start with G minor. what we're doing. So the first triad would be G minor, necessarily. That's the minor third comes up first. Okay, so now this would be your next triad. And then you just move that continuously along the scale, just 2 chord voicings, right? G minor, there's E major with the 3rd, 5th root. Now, I'm losing it. There we go. So this would be the harmonized G diminished scale. And what you have is this triad moves in minor thirds going up, right? Some of you probably know this, but I discovered it really only a few years ago when I started it as a G minor instead of a G major, you know? And if you were to harmonize it G major, you'd have G major, C sharp minor, B flat major, E minor, D flat major, G minor, E major, B flat minor, right? Same voicings, you know, just continuously, and they're just moving up a half step, a whole step, a half step, a whole step, and that's the voicings that you find.
Oh, good question here.
Quick question.
Kind of maybe that could.
Triads, improvisation, and how you combine them with scales. Talk about that. This is kind of addressing that, because these are the triads in the diminished scale, for instance, you know? So if I were to play, right? I just played G triad. That's a G triad. It's just double stops instead. Why does that sound better? It does, though. Instead of, I mean, you can kind of do that, but you phrase it in order to make it sound good. So somehow that just works better for me in terms of using a triad. So I tell you what, let's put this a little bit in the diminished scale. So check this out. So the diminished scale, right? A series of half steps and whole steps. Okay, so the first step is a flatted ninth, right? So I'm going to just play the first couple of chords of a blues using triads and the diminished scale. So I'm like 2, 3, 4. Diminished scale, triad. So the first thing I did was introduce that note that's, you know, no one expects to hear because I'm playing the diminished scale, but I use it very sparingly, right? Now I could go, because it goes to C next, I could go, but I choose not to because to me it sounds strange there. So I'll play, I'll do that. I'll play it like that this time, and then so that was So I'm playing an E triad because there's an E triad in G diminished. There's an E triad, there's a G triad, a B flat triad, a D flat triad, an E triad. Any chord, anything that you play in the diminished scale can move in minor thirds, up or down. And of course, it's called double diminished because this, the half step up, isn't going to be A flat. It's going to be D flat or C sharp with a fifth in the root. This might sound crazy, but just try it. You know, like play it. So I just played the triads. Acoustic's hard for me to play, people, so I hope you don't mind. I will do that. I might do that. That's just, just playing the triads. Or, anything you play, you can move it in minor thirds. And you can also move it, it has to be in combination with one whole step, one half step, one whole step, one half step, one whole step, one half step. So this thing, I just use it as a way to practice intervals, playing intervals, and making use of the diminished scale. Always gets way out there in the woods, man, the diminished scale, talking about it. It always gets way out there in the woods. Let's stop doing that. Oh, thank you. Okay, so let's answer some questions. Steve Carroll in Colorado. Michael Niche, hi Robben, could you please talk a bit about triads and the improvisation? So we just kind of did that. Don't know if you remember me. I was wondering if there is a question that you've never been asked that you would have liked to have been asked. Actually, I wouldn't have been able to think of one, but just yesterday there was a post on my Guitar Dojo channel at TrueFire. There's a channel feed, and so people write in questions asking about the lessons and stuff, and I answer them. And this person asked about my logo. It's been that guitar pick, and inside it, there's a little what actually it comes from an etching. So he asked me, what's it mean? And I thought, wow, I never even thought to explain it. So I was glad someone did. And so I answered him on my channel feed and told him, what that came from. And I'll go ahead and tell you, it's a seal, like a seal for, documents and letters back in the day when they used to do that. I guess they still have the presidential seal, etc. And so anyway, I was my very first tour of Japan. The promoter carved seals for everyone based on the characters of his first name. So the name Robben was broken down to R-O, Ro, Chinese word, Chinese character, Ro, and Ben, B-E-N. And the Ro character is a horse. He's kind of up on his hind legs. And the Ben character is a little bird sitting at the top of like an evergreen tree, a pine tree. So it's a horse and a bird. And I'm actually Sagittarius, so that's a winged horse. Is he winged, the Sagittarian horse? He's got the bow and arrow.
Oh, no.
And I'm not sure that he is winged,
No.
but I'm a bird named Robben. So anyway, it was interesting, corollary there. So thanks for asking. Hope it makes sense. Thank you for marvelous music. Your kindness. And PJ, sorry for my inadequate English. Hope it makes sense. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe we talked about something already. Luca, Tedone. Hello again from Fort Worth, Scotland. Love from India. Honestly, my favorite music, Indian music. Absolutely. Nam. No, Pandit Narayan. Ram Narayan. He plays. Can't think of the name of the instrument. It's an unusual instrument. Anyway, Ram Narayan. Steve Carroll, as we all get older, are there any players from our era or older that you'd like to work with but haven't yet? I like playing with other guitar players. I used to not, because my interest was more in jazz and music that had been produced by horn players and pianos and upright bass and drums. But I really enjoy playing with other guitar players, I must say. I would enjoy playing with anybody, really, from that point of view, because there's always something to kind of get, something to appreciate about each other. I had a blast with Larry Carlton. We had a ball together, touring for a couple of years. Mike Landau with that band, Renegade Creation, although we did very little in the way of live performances, but I love playing with another guitar player. It's great. I'm not interested in keyboards so much anymore, except the B3. Still, the B3 can kill me. And Larry Goldings is the man. And some of you may have seen on YouTube, there's a band called Scary Pockets. And Larry Goldings kind of fronts the band, even though it's not his band. Scary Pockets, and Larry's always kind of featured, and they call it Larry Goldings. He's known as Scary Goldings. Anyway, I had a blast playing with those guys. Larry Goldings is just a marvelous musician. What happened to your own signature model Fender? Do you still own one or a few? I think we talked about that earlier. I no longer have any and moved away from the ebony fretboard. Graham Ross? Okay.
Oops.
What happened?
I don't know.
Oops. Are we back?
I don't know.
We're kind of back. Ooh. It's very different now. I would love to hear a little of Fool's Paradise. Yeah, things really changed here. We went into a different setting or something on the live chat. This is great stuff, already expanding my understanding of Diminished. Question to Kelly, is he always like this?
He's always wonderful.
Oh, now you're making him jealous. Because they don't have you around.
Fun.
So
Lots of fun.
I'm always like this.
Lots of fun.
Glad I've been in your master class. I can't wait for the next one. Did you play the guitar solo on Man in the Mirror by Yellow Jackets? Yeah. Isn't it Man in the Moon? I think that's is it that one? Man in the Moon. And yes, it's a pretty cool solo. That was on a Yamaha guitar, probably through a Roland. You remember that Roland chorus amp? I'll bet. Strange days. I don't know what to do with this. It's so different now.
Okay. I think it's
Yeah.
the same. It's
So
just
go roll up. Further. I would love to hear a little Fool's Paradise. Could you walk us through the chords? Sure. Did I have that one? It's a cool song. I used to hear Mose Allison a lot. He played this club that I haunted in Palo Alto, California, called In Your Ear, which I think the owner burnt down for the insurance. So yeah, let's see. That's my intro. My mother told me, my father said it too. He said, son, fate's gonna catch right up with you. You keep on drinking and gambling, staying out all night. You're just living in a fool's paradise. Right? So I play that. Like, there's certain things, you know, like every now and then a 13th chord is right, and other times it should just be a 7th chord. Or a 9th chord is right, but it should just be a 7th chord. I'm very fond of this chord voicing, which is this. You know, it's just, I'm playing E flat 7 there, right? So the 5th in the root. I dig it. It has this quality of old-timey, and it's also kind of thumpy. It gives you that Freddie Green thing, you know? The next chord is this. B flat raised 9 with flat 13. Da 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 da. And it kind of goes E flat minor 9, A flat minor, then just 7th chords here. And you know, I'll make spontaneous moves sometimes. You know, I'll play it differently. So like even right now, I'm like, I wonder what's the best. I like that. Could do that, or could do to keep that top note consistent. Or yeah, I mean, or I'll just, because I don't really want to hear a dominant note, I'll just play just that, so that it's just the rhythm part. Right, so those are raised 9 chords. And that's another voicing I dig for a 7th chord voicing. E flat 7. Just that one. Drinking and gambling. D raised 9. Laying out all D raised 9. A flat over B flat. So I like that thing. Right, so that little kind of melody thing going on there. And then the bridge of it. I have learned my lesson. Unlike some fools I've known. Things I've seen, this old world. That's what's going on there. You know, just F7, then sus, then that. That's a chop buster, especially on an acoustic guitar for me. Things, this old world. And then, you know, I'll just let it hang. I'll just play those notes. I don't need a full voicing, even with a trio. It's like the quieter you get, you know, it's like the more you lean into that space and let yourself be in that space where you're not filling everything up. You might just hit one note, you know, or just 2 notes. So I don't worry about it being empty, even with the trio. I started doing that, which is F, right? I started playing that voicing, and I'm like, I don't really like it. So I think actually the voicing I want would be that. Even that's unsatisfying to me. So I'll just let those two notes hang out there. Things I've seen in this old world, I'm not likely to forget B13, B flat sus, like that. So that's the best I can do right now. Sorry to talk about it, because again, for me, like, things keep changing, and I won't necessarily do it the same way. There's certain things that I really like that I'll be consistent with, like that walk down, E flat 9, D raised 9, D flat 9, C raised 9, B major 7 with the ninth on the top, and then the A flat over B flat down there at the first fret. Those things, I like it so much. I pretty much play it every time. And she's bringing me another guitar.
You can't forget about this.
No.
So beautiful.
This honestly is my second favorite guitar to the white Telecaster. And I was out touring for a while, a couple of years, during a period that I really enjoyed, which was my record was Bringing It Back Home. And this guitar is the guitar on every single song, and it was deliberately so. I wanted one sound. I wanted every instrument. There's the sound, consistent through the record. It's a quintet, B3 organ, Harvey Mason on drums, upright bass, David, can't think of his last name right now for some reason. Anyway, and then Stephen Baxter on trombone. And me with this guitar on that pickup and never hitting any overdrive or anything like that, That was absolutely the concept, and kept it consistent. So once again, I'm so sorry I don't have amps here, but,
Next week, maybe. Yeah.
a virus, it takes a virus. Hillary Clinton takes a virus. So, indeed, this guitar is not necessarily the greatest instrument in the world. It's a 65. Most of my instruments are I don't like to get past 63. It's happened, and this is one of them. My 355 is a 64, and this is a 65. But it's just that this is like the Tele has always been my blues guitar, but with this, I can get things that I can get on the Telecaster with this rhythm pickup, the mini humbuckers, And there's something just very rock and roll about the mini humbucker here on the Epiphone. It is indeed, I'm pretty sure I'm correct about this. You Really Got Me by the Kinks, that was one of the most stunning beginnings of a song I ever heard in my life. Man, when you're 12, your hair stands on end. And that guy played one of these with a Bigsby, which I used to have the Bigsby on here, but I took it off and put on the hard tailpiece and the Nashville Bridge. So it has a certain honky thing in a rock and roll way that I actually like too. But for the most part, I'll be on that pickup, a little bit on the rhythm pickup when I'm playing this guitar. It's really kind of more about the rhythm pickup than anything else. That's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions we might answer? Okay. I'll take a look. Walk Alone says, because in your live performances you never play older songs like Misdirected Blues, I'm a real man or busted up. Oh, why? Well, because I would be bored. I've already played them a lot, you know? And as I always like to say, I don't want to be a Robben Ford cover band because that's what it kind of feels like to me, you know? Especially Talk to Your Daughter. I mean, that I played that song so many times and it was so popular with people, you know, so it would come back every now and then. But eventually I developed another version of it. Actually, I think we might have recorded it with Larry Carlton this way. I'm not sure, but I turned it into like that. I'm a papa, please talk to your daughter for me, right? I did it like that with Jing Chi, which was kind of fun. First Jing Chi tour, the only Jing Chi tour. And yeah, I mean, like, Busted Up, that's a fun song. I used to really enjoy playing that. Misdirected Blues was a challenge as a trio for me. So we didn't really even play that song that much live. But I needed some support in order to pull that one off live. So we rarely played it live. But Busted Up, I really enjoyed that song. Thank you for noticing. And that's a good song. Forgot all about that song. Yes? Hi, Robben. Did you sell your old Fender? Oh, yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, we did. Yellow Jackets. Thank you. Somebody really liked the Yellow Jackets there. Yeah, we're doing all kinds of crazy things today. Yeah. Do you visualize the fretboards with intervals B2, B3, 3, etc.? Visualize the fretboard. I don't know about that. I know the fretboard well, you know, from having traversed it so much. It's like a road, you know. It's like driving home, you know. The fretboard should be so familiar to you that you know you don't really need to think about it too much, you know, because you've walked that road so many times, you know. So I don't visualize the fretboard. You know, people will talk about boxes, you know, and you know they exist. You know, there's a pattern, you know, like between the first and and minor third the pentatonic scale. It's like a little box, you know, that you draw across the fretboard, you know, or you can be, you know, coming off of the minor third, major third, right there. There's a little box, you know. There's a little box around all chords, but I never like thinking like that because it boxes you in, you know. Like my practice is to do something that I haven't done before, like you know, take this with a grain of salt, you know, but whenever I find myself, whenever I notice that I'm being repetitive in any way, I do something deliberately different. See, again, these are my practices. My practices are, what's the word? You know, they're uncommon. Not exactly uncommon. I mean, everyone has them. You know, they are aware of these possibilities, but most people are more interested in the notes, you know, and more notes and faster notes. And this is something that I backed away from, you know, I backed away from it and went more to what might be a surprise, you know, and it doesn't have to be a bunch of notes. It can be one note, you know, and it's just a surprise. So this is why, you know, they're you know, that's how you reach people and, you know, communicate with people is by things like that, you know. That's why people love it. Like when you play one thing, like just a few notes, but you play it again and again and again and again and again really fast, you know. That's kind of mind-blowing for some reason to people, you know. But I think it's more the emotion, you know. That somebody's just digging down on that thing, man, with all they got. That's where things happen, you know. Or just being a goofball like you see me here every Sunday, you know. on the guitar in front of people, And so it's a practice for me. The whole thing is like a spiritual practice. That's more important to me, And making beautiful music. Making beautiful music is absolutely number one. And beautiful sounds, beautiful tones and space and those things, I'm a true Miles Davis acolyte. I think more than any other artist, he influenced me, as well as Paul Desmond, the alto saxophone player. Talked about him a little bit, I think, last time. Just the sheer beauty of the note choices. And I probably told that little story where he said, everybody was chasing Charlie Parker, including him. And he just went, I'm just going to go the other way, Wayne Shorter said that in an interview somewhere, like, when he was starting out, because he'd go on these jams in New York, and it was like his peers were, and the people a little in front of him are like Sonny Rollins, so he'd be at jam sessions, with other heavyweights, and everybody would play real fast. And so he said, I would just go the opposite direction. Whatever anybody else had been doing, I would go the opposite direction. So that was a career choice for me, to go the opposite direction, Okay, a couple more. Do you play with fuzz pedal in Bound for Glory solo or just amp? Absolutely, yes. I think that's one of my. I love that. That's a great piece of music. That whole thing. I really like that. All those guitars sound so cool to me.
Wait, I think he's continuing that question right here.
Or just amp. Talk about the Purple House sound and setup, please. Beautiful album, sounds and lyrics. Thank you. Yeah. So the solos on that record were all done with we can pull the SG out. We haven't talked about the SG here. All the solos on the record were done on this guitar right here, which is this 64 SG. It's got old parts. The stuff in here is good. Anyway, this is also, body, neck are original. And, that's not original. That's not original. I think I refretted it with pretty big frets. The tuners, they're probably original. But look at this, that is not original. Nothing about that is original. So they literally removed whatever was there. I don't know how they did that, man. But, this is like from a mandolin or something, or some other old Gibson acoustic, and that, not original. So this guitar is a bit of a Frankenstein, but whatever the pickups are, and I never opened it up. If a guitar sounds good, just don't touch it. Don't do anything to it, except refret it. I'm a believer in that, for sure. But these pickups they're great. They sound great. And again, not original. They're not finished. I don't know what they are, but I'll never know. So anyway, this guitar, and I bought a Vibrolux Custom, literally brand new. It's with 210s and those white knobs. I think they discontinued them. It was a short kind of custom edition of those amps. And so the solos on the record were done with that amplifier, cranked. And I think there must be an overdrive pedal on that, but it might just be the amp totally cranked up. I wish I could be clear with you on that. But I would just turn that thing on 10, because that's the way it sounded best, was if it was just really pushing. And then on the song, What I Haven't Done, that's, again, this guitar, no overdrive, just a total clean sound, throughout it. And that was I think, with that amplifier, but I plugged it into a single 12, something like that. But anyway, all the rhythm parts on that guitar were done through a vintage Pro Reverb, and all the guitar solos were done with that Vibrolux custom amp. I wouldn't recommend buying one because they're noisy. And it was just something I did in a pinch because I was trying to find some smaller amps that I could work with. And I wanted to buy that Pro Reverb, but they asked too much money for it. Yeah. So yeah, that SG looms large on that. And I used a Les Paul Jr., 59 Les Paul Jr. for a lot of the rhythm parts. Trying to think of that. Yeah. That song, what you're hearing there is a Les Paul Jr. through a vintage Pro Reverb. Blackface. How do you practice for a gig? Do you practice singing and playing together? I've never practiced singing and playing together in any literal way, just done it a lot. And I always warm up my voice before a gig using the technique that I learned from a guy named Gary Katona in Los Angeles, who actually has an app. And I don't know, like, the app is potentially good. I think it's kind of expensive. And it may or may not work for you, but a friend of mine indeed bought the app when I said, you should just take lessons from him. But he bought the app, and he felt he benefited from it. So Gary Katona was my teacher. I had probably 5 teachers over my whole life, vocal teachers that I studied with, and he was the only guy who really helped me. Vocal teacher thing, it's a very dicey proposition. It really is. Some of them can keep you sort of in shape, but Gary Katona's technique gave me more voice, actually. You're strengthening your vocal cords and you're starting to use more of them. It's just like, building muscles, man. You're only using a little bit of your vocal cords, right? So his technique works down. And it's down, back and down. Like take the vowel, hit the vowel, and the gag he said, the gag is your best friend. You want to gag. And after a while, you're not gagging anymore. And that's because you've actually strengthened those things. And it's the best technique I've ever run across. I think I skipped somebody. This gentleman, Kenny Poor. Hey, Robben, do you remember playing on my first record, Inner City Dreams, one of the highlights of my life? I believe I do. Send me a name of one of the songs. Was it? Anyway, I think I do. So what do we got, babe? Amp advice from Dumble owner. Advice, I'm not sure, but you might be saying if you can't have a Dumble, because if you have a Dumble, you certainly don't need any advice. So I'm going to assume that it's because it's having a Dumble amplifier. What would one do instead? Something like that, because my amp requires almost no care, and I just give it to Alexander for a little while, and everything's great. So amplifier choices are always a big deal. Probably very personal, but for me, I always liked super reverbs. But after a while, it's like I needed more low end, and I think it's the 2x12 cabinet for the most part that I've grown accustomed to. And when I don't have that 2x12 cabinet, I seem to be missing something. Because 10 sound cool, but more for recording. Interesting. They can absolutely work, and that's what Derek Trucks, played through super reverbs, and eventually he got one of those 6-speaker super reverbs, limited edition. I don't know if that's still what he's playing, but when I was around him a little bit, he was playing through supers. and 2 supers. Sounds good. But it's very tough. It's very tough. The amp thing, I've just been so spoiled, but it also makes me loud, and I don't want to be that loud. So I'm still trying to find out what to do. And currently I'm experimenting with little Walter amplifiers. I've come to know Phil Bradbury well, and we're working together and trying to find, a way for me to have a 50-watt amplifier, and maybe a single 12 cabinet or something. I'm actually looking at a 15 now. He's made a cabinet and put a 15 in it for me. I'm really can't wait for this Curcio Duo. Hi, Robben. Can you play Revelation, please? I pray you. Greetings from Cosenza, Calabria, Italy. Thank you so much, but I can't. I wish I could.
Play something so you close out.
Well,
putting you on the spot.
Yeah. Can I get that acoustic? Yeah. It's never been my thing to sit and play by myself for people. It's just I learned how to play the guitar with a band, So what was I doing last night? I played something, didn't I? Yeah, I don't remember. Oh, hey, let's do this one.
Yeah.
I haven't played this in a while. This is what's the song called? Bound for Glory. Say goodbye to your little underdog. No more run and catch things you throw my way. I was on to take good care of yourself. Bound for glory, but there's a price to pay. Not that you care for. Oh, I'm sorry. Not that you care, you'll find me by the riverside. Baptize the maker where the water is clear and wide. Like a smoker's cough reveals a bit of truth. Please don't kid yourself. Now's the time to stop. Mountain high, but the air is clean. Bound for glory, just let the covers drop. I'll be celebrating by the riverside. Baptize the maker where the water is clear and nowhere left to hide. By the riverside. Can't take the guitar solo. Baptize the maker where the water is clear and nowhere left to hide. By the riverside. I know there's a little more, but sorry for the interruptions. It's the best I could do. It's hard for me to play this guitar like this stuff. And also, the guitar was tuned down a half step for Bound for Glory. That's an E flat. So it's a little high for my voice. But something I thought about here. Well, anyway, a texture. I love this. Right? So I love the way the guitar, those low notes. Like, how often do you get down there and play those things? You know what I mean? Everything's kind of in the middle or high. So that was for me, like, do something different. Go play the low. Find your riff low, you know, instead of high, right? So it leads you to things that you wouldn't normally do. To just do something like that, and you have this cool sound, you know. So that's the thirds there, and then right. I'm sorry. And then I do this other thing in there, right? So another thing I thought of while playing it is this thing here. Right? So what I'm playing was a major scale displacing the notes and just bouncing them around. And in so doing, at a certain point, there was a note in the major scale that I didn't want to hear. So I skipped it. Imagine that. So it goes, da, 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 right? Dee, da, dee, da. Didn't want to hear that, so da, skip the D, da, D, and then it would be da, right? But that sounded too much like a scale, so I played the major seventh again. Yeah. Oh, just that. So it's just a major scale displacing the notes, you see? So like I'm not working with sophisticated harmony, you know, complex harmony. I just am using very basic, you know, white keys of the piano harmony and the diminished scale and the pentatonic scale. I know I've said these things before, but it's just to make the point, you know, you can do a lot with the little, right? You know, if I'd gone, you know, nobody would have cared. But what the heck? And you're getting these textures low to high, you know? You don't have to know a million things to come up with some pretty good stuff. All right. Okay, one last one. Thank you, guys. Whoops, we're jumping. Thank you, guys. We really appreciate this thing. Such a good vibes in these uneasy times. That's from Michael Gonet, I think. Thank you from Kelly and me here at the ranch, at the birdhouse.
The birdhouse.
Treehouse.
Treehouse.
Yeah, we're in the treehouse. All right, people. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm so glad you're happy to be a part of this. I think we were still on.